TV show review here on Max Talks Movies. My name is Max Dinberg. Today, I am going to be breaking down both in non-spoiler fashion and in spoiler fashion season 1 of the spin-off show from the Monsterverse, Monarch Legacy of Monsters. I'm going to break down, first of all, the first half of the episode of this video will be non-spoiler reviews for people who have not checked out the show, you've never even heard of the show, or maybe are just waiting to hear thoughts from me about the show. And then the second half of this video will be me going to diving into spoilers, kind of just really just breaking down that finale, and then setting up if I think there could be a season 2, how this connects to the overall Monsterverse. So I did want to do a non-spoiler and spoiler because this is season 1. And I didn't feel like doing 2 separate videos. So I will have a time code down below. So if you click the video, you can tell when we are in non-spoiler territory and when we are in spoiler territory. So definitely stay tuned for that so you know where you want to fit onto this video. So please comment down below. First of all, if you've seen the show, did you like it? Did you not like it? Where does this rank for you overall in the Monsterverse? Let me know. Like the video, subscribe, and ring that bell for notifications. So let's get started right now with my non-spoiler thoughts. So for people who have never maybe heard of the show, know nothing about it, this is a spin-off of the Monsterverse, which includes the 2015's Godzilla, 2017's Kong Skull Island, 2019 Godzilla King of the Monsters, and 2021 Godzilla versus Kong, and obviously later this year, Godzilla X Kong, the New Empire. So this is of this universe, not Godzilla -1 or something like that. So the show goes back and forth between the present and the past. The present of this show is 2016, if I'm not mistaken, or something like that, around the time of months after the first Godzilla film directed by Gareth Edwards in 2015. And the plot of the show, basically, the present plot is led by these daughter and son of this very famous scientist, Hiroshi Randa, who did not know they're related. Now they realize they are related, played by Anna Sawai as Kate Randa and Ren Watabe as Kentaro. Hopefully I'm saying their names right. They realize that they are now involved in a legacy of monsters at Monarch. Monarch, one of the organizations that are leading the way for stopping Titans or just understanding Titans. And they meet on their journey in an old military person, Lee Shaw, played by Kurt Russell, who helps them along the way, seeing if they can trust Monarch, not trust Monarch, and how they can stop the next G-Day, as they say, which is what happened in the first Godzilla when Godzilla killed a lot of people in San Francisco. At the same time, we go in the past to catch up with Kentaro and Kate's grandparents, who are played by Mari Yamamoto, who is Dr. Keiko. She's fantastic in the show. You also have young Bill Randa, who's played by Anders Holm. Bill Randa is John Goodman's character from Kong Skull Island, and we're seeing a younger version of him. And also a younger version of Lee Shaw, Kurt Russell's character, who's played by Kurt Russell's actual son in real life, Wyatt Russell. So I said, it is 10 episodes long. They're around 40 to 50 minutes long. And my non-spoiler review is overall, I had a good time with Monarch Legacy of Monsters. This is actually kind of the show that I wanted it to be. There were some elements that frustrated me that there are so many elements of the show where I wanted it to be one of my favorite shows all year long. And I really enjoyed Monarch Legacy of Monsters. I'll get into spoilers, so some of my issues, but I can't go into this. This show is 10 episodes long. And because it's going through the past and the present plot lines for 95% of this show, there are going to be elements and characters that you're simply just more interested in than others. And I found that to be the bad news with the show. I think the leading kids of the show, as you'd say, Kate, Kentaro, and also, sorry, I forgot to mention as well, May, who's played by Kiersey Clemens, is also with the Kentaro and Kate on this journey as well. She's someone who had a fling with Kentaro, and she's also now on the journey. She has a very fascinating backstory as well. So I felt like our big three, which is Kate, May, and Kentaro, were probably three of the least interesting characters on this show. By far and away, the most interesting characters are the past characters, where you have, the Wyatt Russell, Kurt Russell, Lee Shaw character, and then you have Bill Randa and Keiko. Fascinating characters. Every time we got to the past, it was very interesting. When Kurt Russell is on the show, it is amazing because this show, with the help of Wyatt Russell and Kurt Russell, has a lot more star power, and especially when Kurt Russell's on screen, charisma, that leading man that this show desperately needed. It's no offense to any of the actors on the show, including Wyatt Russell, but the show does not have any star power or charisma like that other than Kurt Russell. And Kurt Russell brings absolutely the perfect thing that the show needs. And Kurt Russell is fantastic. He brings it his all on the show. But also, I think Wyatt Russell is also terrific as the younger version of Lee Shaw. Lee Shaw is a complex character. You don't know if he's a jealous, hateful man. You don't know if he is a jealous man. You don't know if he's also on the right or the wrong side of Monarch, and right and wrong side of humanity. And I think Lee is a fascinating character that you go your ups and downs with him. If you think he's a villain, if you think he's a hero, if you think he's someone who could help, throughout all 10 episodes. And I really enjoyed the journey with Lee Shaw, both with Wyatt Russell and Kurt Russell. So I enjoyed both elements of that. As I said, the past was also really good. Keiko Randa became probably one of my MVP characters of the show, especially if you get to that finale, which I will talk about in my spoiler breakdown. But I really enjoyed her character as well. As I said, the three core characters that we have here are just sometimes a bit too whiny, because Kate and Kentaro are siblings who did not know they were siblings, and they are very mad at their dad about this, and their dad's missing. They're trying to find their dad. And there's too many times where after they survive near-death experiences, their next word coming out of their mouth is complaining and whining about their dad. And it just pulls me out of the show from an emotional standpoint. I don't think it works with the story, and the ups and downs of those characters, I think they're just lazily written characters. And then May, I love Kiersey Clemens. She's very good in the show, but they kind of set up her character in this one episode. They give her like a whole backstory episode, and then she does something that kind of betrays our two lead characters, and then they're like, forget about you. And then they're like, oh, 2 seconds later, they want her back. There's kind of an issue there. I think they're running with those three core characters that I felt like they were just so far less interesting than Lee and the Randas. I just did not think they were that interesting, and at times annoying in the show. The show also has a tremendous budget to it. I don't know if you see in the background, Godzilla's in the background. Now, while Godzilla is not in the show a lot, there are Titans for sure in a lot of the episodes. Godzilla does cameo in multiple episodes, I can say. But this is not about the Titans. This is the first element of the MonsterVerse where it is basically squarely focused on the human characters. And that's why I think it's probably the best thing of the entire MonsterVerse, is that I deeply cared about the characters in the third act of the last episode. I think the last episode is chef's kiss. Perfect, a fantastic ending, and a fantastic finale to season 1. And it takes it so much to a high note where everything's working. All the characters are working. All the emotional beats are working. The action is working, especially in that episode. But the budget is there. You never feel like you're on a cheap knockoff spin-off of the MonsterVerse where there's like cheap, clearly CGI Titans, and obviously they are CGI. But I was shocked by how good this show looks, both in the past and the present. So before I keep catching myself in spoilers, overall, I would give Monarch Legacy of Monsters a 3.5 out of 5. I would go 74%. I'm so close to 75, but 74% for Monarch Legacy of Monsters. A really solid show, I think. And I will say, if you have not seen any of the MonsterVerse movies, I would highly, recommend that you do watch those movies before you watch this. I have not talked to anyone who's seen this show and they have not seen any of the movies. So I can't tell you that's a bad experience, or the show will leave people behind. There are Easter eggs and setups for things in the MonsterVerse that only people who've seen those other movies will understand. So I guess that's my kind of thing for that. Now let's stop here and talk about spoilers. So if you've not seen any of these episodes, stay away, or unless you want to get spoiled. But I'm going to talk about all spoilers, really just talking about this finale episode. So starting right now. So with my spoiler thoughts, I just want to talk about that fantastic season finale, episode 10, which we got the best action. We got Godzilla in action in this episode, as well as a really emotional reunion between Lee and Keiko. So they go into basically the Hollow Earth, or one of the universes where that's keeping these Titans underground. And you know, the moment that Kate sees Keiko, that we're going to get a reunion between Lee and Keiko. And we know that Lee was there for a week and it cost him 20 years of time. And Lee and the reveal it's so well done by Kurt Russell, because while Kurt Russell and Wyatt Russell look together, sometimes they're both fantastic. And it's my favorite part of the show, having Wyatt Russell and Kurt Russell in the show. But this episode, you could really feel Wyatt Russell and Kurt Russell were acting as the same person in this episode. You could just feel Kurt Russell watching a lot of his son's scenes and taking that upon his character in this episode, because you get this reunion where he's emotional behind the tree, and he basically lets Keiko know that she's been down there for 57 days. And since then, it's now 2015, and she went down there, I think, in the 1930s or 40s or 50s or whatever that range is. And her whole life collapsed. Her husband, obviously, we know Bill dies in Kong Skull Island. We know that, her son is now much older. Her life just fell completely apart. And then she sees Lee as this older man. Obviously, he should be a lot older because he went down into Hollow Earth. But this really emotional, resonant, it's hard not to feel emotional or get chills with that reunion. It's so well acted by far the two best characters on the show, Keiko and Lee. And I want to give so much credit to Mari Yamamoto. Never seen her in anything before the show, and she was amazing in this series and deserves a lot of work post this series. And her chemistry with Wyatt Russell became just as good with Kurt Russell in just a 20-minute span with Kurt Russell, and she was spent the entire series with Wyatt Russell. But the seamless transition of chemistry, you feel that they are the same person, and it made it such a unbelievable scene, an emotional, riveting scene between the two of them. And you knew that someone was not going to make it out of the situation. Keiko said she wanted to stand by, but it turned out that Lee sacrifices himself. Now, obviously, the Apple has not announced yet if the show will be renewed. If it is, I would be shocked. If the show does get renewed, and we get a season 2, I would be shocked if they don't bring Kurt Russell back as Lee Shaw. He falls off. We don't really see him get killed in this episode. He falls off the thing. Obviously, it's a very high up, and he is not. He's an older, any person would die from that height. But we're in the Monsterverse, so you never know. Because I think he's the star power of the show. So I think it would be interesting. I think the show can't really move on without him, I think, if they move on to a season 2. But Keiko gets to see her granddaughter and her granddaughter, her and May, they go back to the world. We learn that they were down there for 2 years, and Kentaro has been working with his father to find them. Obviously, they come out, and you get this another just great scene of Hiroshi with his mom, who he had not seen since he was a little kid. He had his family, which was Lee, Bill, and Keiko obviously passed. He thought passed. His dad went on this expedition, thought his dad was crazy, and then thought his uncle was crazy for going down and losing 20 years and all these things. And that scene too between Wyatt Russell and kind of adult Hiroshi was also very well done as well. But you get this scene, and it's very emotional. Then you learn that the Apex people are the ones helping out Kentaro and Hiroshi. And then we see that we're in Skull Island, and our last shot of the show is Kong. So we got both Godzilla and Kong in this episode. Godzilla with a badass boss fight with a Titan in the middle of this episode. And we ending with our last shot of the show could be Kong. So overall, I enjoyed it. I did not like, as I said, I thought Kentaro and and Kate were so complaining and whining throughout most of the series. I just found it to be more annoying than characters I cared about. But I did enjoy I love the last episode. It's such on a high note that I wish the show overall is not super consistent. There'll be episodes where you really enjoy, and the episodes that you're kind of like, this is not quite clicking for me. So that's why I'm at like a 3.5. I want to be at a 4. But overall, I had a good time with Monarch: Legacy of Monsters. It's a long video, but I want to give my full thoughts on this show. If you're new to the channel, I also have done a full ranking video of the MonsterVerse, including Godzilla versus Kong, that I did when that movie came out now 3 years ago. I'm doing an updated list when that movie hits theaters with actually Monarch: Legacy of Monsters. I'll add it to the list when Godzilla Kong New Empire hits theaters. So I'll see you guys then.